Well, since the end of summer, more people have been coming back into the office.
Yeah, but there are some workers who've been working from home since March of 2020 with no plans at all to return. According to Monster.com's survey, 54% of workers are still fully remote and have never even met their colleagues in person.
Wow, that same poll found that employees are willing to sacrifice a lot to continue to work from home, like work through their lunch or even get a root canal. But does everyone have to return eventually?
Well, Vicki Salemi from Monster.com joining us to talk about the survey and how you can score one of those remote working gigs. Vicki, always good to see you.
Same here. Thanks for having me.
All right. So if your boss says everybody has got to return to the office, but you just really don't want to do that because people have gotten used now to working remotely, how do you handle that?
Yeah, talk to your boss and have a conversation. So it's a dialogue, not a monologue. And just have an even exchange of conversation. Point out your productivity. Be open to negotiation. Maybe you meet in the middle and you work in the office 2 or 3 days a week and then at home the rest of the week.
Okay, so Vicki, what if they agree, but it's a short-term fix and then they change their minds?
It happens. So you could try to negotiate again, or they may just say, no, this is the rule for everyone. And then you have to figure out what your options are, would be either to stay in a job or look for a new one.
Right.
Okay, so what if they're not flexible at all and still mandate 5 days a week in the office? Though I really haven't heard, are there a lot of bosses that are not being flexible right now?
I think it depends on the industry, Tamsin, and the location, and also it could depend on the situation. If I was managing someone and they had to commute, let's say, from South Jersey to Midtown versus someone who lived downtown to Midtown, it depends, I think, on the personal situation. But 66% of people in our Monster survey said they would look for a new job. So if your boss is really inflexible, you may just say, you know what, it's still a job seeker's market, and you'd rather quit your current job and find a new one that is 100% remote.
Okay, so let's talk about those people. Let's say a person quits and they find a new job. How can they ensure that that job will remain remote?
Yes, they can be upfront with the employer during the interview process. And I have to say, it's not likely, most employers are not going to intentionally pull a bait and switch situation, which say, yes, it's remote, and guess what? Now it's in the office. A sad trombone. But basically, the job seeker, as well as the employee, can talk to their boss and say, I will accept this job, and it has to, this is what I'm looking for, without mandating it, but just saying, this is a non-negotiable for me. It's still a job seeker's market, so they still have negotiation room as a job seeker.
Well, so I'm curious about this. Is it okay to say in a job interview, hey, I left my last job because I was forced to come back to the office? What does that look like to a new employer? I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. You can definitely say it up front, be transparent. Okay. I would just be cognizant about how you word it and just say, I'm so much more productive at home. You don't want to say, i.e., you're doing laundry during lunchtime.
I love having 3-day weekends.
Yeah, exactly. But you do want to point out your productivity without the commute. You're more available to your colleagues. Yeah. Maybe you're more well rested, and in turn, that boosts your productivity. So you can point out all of these things and just say, that's why it's so important to me. It's a non-negotiable. I'm looking for a job that's 100% remote. And also, it expands the job seekers' ability to look outside their zip code or outside the tri-state area even.
Right. Okay, so before people quit just because they don't want to be in the office, what are some questions to ask to make sure it's the right decision?
Yeah, well, it's all about the right fit in terms of the cultural fit, in terms of the job itself. So they can ask, where do you see this job itself, as well as the department growing and going within the next year, 3 years, 5 years, to really understand the nature of the work and if it may change. None of us can predict what can happen in the future, but you can hopefully get them to be on the same page with you and also see if they're working remotely and your boss's view, because if your company has a policy, maybe your boss has a different one in your favor to work from home.
Oh, I love it. It's a good thing you're able to have a negotiation now. I mean, before the pandemic, those were not conversations that were easy to come by.
It's true, and it was really a one-off. If there was a table guy or you had an appointment. So now it's much more fluid in many jobs, not all. So it's an opportunity for conversations.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, Vicki, thanks so much for joining us for these tips. Good to see you.